There is a truth most people discover too late. The greatest danger in your life rarely arrives as an obvious enemy. It often arrives with a familiar face, a warm smile, and words that sound supportive while quietly draining your strength. Not every battle is fought in isolation. Some battles are fought through the people you allow into your inner circle. If you fail to recognize them, they will slowly influence your thoughts, weaken your discipline, and distance you from the person you were meant to become. Today, we will uncover 6 kinds of people you must have the courage to let go, not out of hatred, but out of wisdom. Many people believe that the greatest threat to their life is failure, hardship, or a powerful enemy. But I have observed something different. Most people are not defeated in a single dramatic moment. They are defeated gradually through the voices they listen to every day. The mind is like fertile soil. It does not argue with every seed that falls upon it. It simply receives what is repeated often enough. If the seeds are filled with courage, discipline, and hope, they will eventually become your character. But if the seeds are filled with fear, doubt, resentment, and constant negativity, those too will grow until they become the way you see the world. This is why you must become very careful about the people who always speak from a place of darkness. Every conversation leaves a trace. Every complaint enters your awareness. Every prediction of failure quietly shapes your expectations. At first, you believe you are simply listening. Later, you begin repeating the same thoughts. Eventually, you cannot distinguish between their voice and your own. Have you ever noticed how some people can find a problem in every opportunity? They dismiss every dream before it begins. They criticize every attempt to improve. They remind you of every possible risk, but never encourage you to take a meaningful step forward. Their words may sound realistic, but in truth, they are imprisoned by fear. And fear has a strange desire. It never wants to remain alone. It seeks another home. If you are not attentive, it will make your mind its next residence. This does not mean you should avoid people who are honest or who offer constructive advice. Wisdom sometimes sounds uncomfortable because it asks you to grow. Negativity is different. It offers no solution. It points only toward defeat. It magnifies problems while shrinking possibilities. It drains your energy without helping you discover your strength. Look carefully at how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you leave inspired to become better, or do you leave feeling exhausted, anxious, and uncertain about yourself? Energy is contagious. Attitudes spread silently. You may think you are too strong to be influenced, but even the strongest tree bends when the wind blows against it day after day. Human beings are no different. Constant exposure shapes perception, and perception shapes action. There is another danger hidden within constant negativity. It slowly teaches you to distrust your own potential. Before you even begin, a voice inside whispers, "It won't work." Before you speak, it says, "They will reject you." Before you change your habits, it says, "People never really change." Those thoughts often did not begin with you. They were borrowed from someone who surrendered to discouragement long ago. Guard your inner world with the same care you would guard your home. You would not leave your front door open for anyone who wished to enter, yet many people leave the doors of their minds completely unprotected. They allow every opinion, every complaint, every cynical remark to settle inside without question. Then they wonder why peace has disappeared. This is not about judging others or believing yourself to be above them. Every person carries struggles. Every person has moments of weakness, but there is a difference between helping someone through darkness and allowing their darkness to become your permanent environment. Compassion does not require surrendering your own peace. You can care for someone while refusing to become a mirror of their despair. If you wish to become mentally strong, spiritually grounded, and emotionally free, begin by listening more carefully. Pay attention not only to the words others speak, but also to the beliefs those words create within you. Your future is influenced long before your actions change. It begins with the conversations you permit to shape your thinking. Protect your mind, because every life is first won or lost within it. There is another kind of person who may appear far more dangerous than the one who speaks with constant negativity. This person does not discourage you openly. Instead, they learn your heart, study your kindness, and quietly use it for their own advantage. They understand that compassionate people often hesitate to disappoint others. They know you value peace, loyalty, and harmony. Rather than respecting these qualities, they exploit them. Manipulation rarely announces itself. It seldom begins with demands. It begins with small expectations that that seem harmless, a favor here, a sacrifice there, a request that makes you uncomfortable, but you agree because you do not want to seem selfish. At first, you tell yourself it is only temporary, then it becomes a pattern. Before long, your life is no longer guided by your own values, but by someone else's expectations. Many people mistake guilt for love. They believe that if someone makes them feel guilty for saying no, it must mean they care deeply. But genuine love does not depend on control. It does not threaten your peace whenever you choose yourself. It does not make you feel responsible for another person's emotional stability. Healthy relationships create freedom. Manipulative relationships create dependence. Think about how easily people can influence someone who fears rejection. If your greatest desire is to be accepted, someone else only needs to threaten their approval to control your decisions. They may say, if you cared about me, you would do this. Or, after everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? These words are designed to bypass your wisdom and speak directly to your emotions. They are not inviting understanding, they are demanding surrender. The danger is not only that you lose time or energy, the greater danger is that you slowly lose yourself. Every time you ignore your conscience to satisfy someone else's demands, you weaken your trust in your own judgment. You begin questioning your instincts. You stop listening to the quiet voice inside that warns you when something feels wrong. Eventually, you no longer recognize where your authentic self ends and someone else's control begins. This is why boundaries are essential. Many people misunderstand boundaries. They think boundaries push people away. In reality, healthy boundaries reveal who truly respects you. A person who values you will appreciate your honesty even when you cannot give them what they want. A manipulative person will often become angry because your boundary removes the control they once enjoyed. You do not need to explain every decision you make. You do not need to defend every moment you choose rest, growth, or solitude. Sometimes a simple, respectful no is enough. Notice who becomes upset when you stop sacrificing yourself. Their reaction often tells you more than their words ever could. There is also a deeper lesson hidden here. If you constantly seek approval from others, you hand them authority over your emotional life. The moment your happiness depends on someone else's acceptance, you become vulnerable to manipulation. But when your actions are guided by integrity rather than approval, something remarkable happens. You become difficult to control. You remain kind, but your kindness is no longer weakness. You remain generous, but your generosity is no longer an invitation for exploitation. Strength is not measured by how much you endure from unhealthy people. Strength is measured by the wisdom to recognize when compassion must be joined with courage. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in patterns that destroy your peace. Walking away from manipulation is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-respect. Protect your kindness, but never allow it to become the chain that keeps you bound. As you begin protecting your mind from negativity and freeing yourself from manipulation, you will encounter another challenge that is much more subtle. It comes from people who genuinely enjoy your company, who may even care about you in their own way, yet unknowingly keep you trapped in the same place year after year. Not every person who limits your growth intends to harm you. Some simply fear change so deeply that they resist it wherever they see it, including in you. Growth has an interesting effect on relationships. The moment you become more disciplined, more focused, or more committed to your purpose, you begin reflecting possibilities that others may not be ready to face. Your transformation reminds them of the dreams they abandoned, the promises they broke to themselves, and the comfort they chose over courage. Rather than confronting their own choices, it is often easier for them to convince you not to change at all. Listen carefully to the conversations that happen when you decide to improve your life. You begin waking up earlier and someone laughs saying, "Why are you trying so hard?" You choose to spend less time gossiping and suddenly you are told that you have become boring. You stop wasting money and people accuse you of no longer enjoying life. You dedicate yourself to learning a new skill and they remind you of every reason you might fail. Notice that they rarely tell you directly to remain average. Instead, they invite you back into familiar habits. Skip today. You deserve a break. You can start next week. One excuse sounds harmless. Two excuses seem understandable, but repeated often enough, these invitations quietly rebuild the life you were trying to leave behind. Comfort is attractive because it asks nothing of you. It allows you to stay exactly where you are while creating the illusion that tomorrow will somehow be different. but tomorrow is shaped by what you repeatedly choose today. If your closest relationships constantly encourage comfort over discipline, then comfort becomes your identity before you even realize it. This is why your environment matters so much. Human beings naturally adapt to the standards around them. Spend enough time with people who complain, and complaining begins to feel normal. Spend enough time with people who avoid responsibility, and excuses begin to sound reasonable. But spend time with those who value honesty, discipline, humility, and continuous learning, and you will discover that excellence also becomes contagious. You should never measure a friendship by how long it has existed. Measure it by what it awakens within you. Does this person inspire you to become wiser? Do they celebrate your progress without jealousy? Can they tell you difficult truths because they genuinely want to see you succeed, or do they become uncomfortable every time you move closer to your purpose? Sometimes the hardest people to outgrow are those you have loved for many years. History creates emotional attachment, but history alone cannot sustain a healthy future. Loyalty is a beautiful quality, yet loyalty without wisdom becomes self-destruction. Remaining connected to someone simply because you have always known them is not always an expression of love. Sometimes it is an expression of fear, the fear of being misunderstood, criticized, or left alone. Understand this clearly. Choosing a different path does not mean you are abandoning people. It means you are refusing to abandon your own potential. There will always be those who misunderstand your commitment. They may call you distant because you no longer waste your evenings in meaningless distractions. They may call you proud because you have learned to value your time. They may say you have changed, and in one sense, they are right. You have changed. That is the purpose of growth. Do not feel guilty for becoming the person you were always capable of becoming. Those who truly care about you will not fear your progress. They will encourage it even when it challenges them to grow as well. Walk with those who inspire your future, not those who keep you imprisoned in your past. After you begin separating yourself from negative influences, manipulation, and relationships that keep you comfortable, there is another obstacle that demands your attention. It is not always a person who openly opposes your dreams. Often, it is someone who constantly distracts you from them. They may not encourage you to fail. They simply encourage you to forget what truly matters. And sometimes that is even more dangerous. One of the greatest battles in life is not over your talent, your intelligence, or your opportunities. It is over your attention. Whatever holds your attention will eventually shape your direction. Your life moves toward what you consistently focus on. If your attention is scattered every day, your energy becomes scattered as well. You may work hard, but without focus, hard work loses its power. There are people who live from one distraction to another. Every conversation revolves around gossip. Every message demands an immediate response. Every small conflict becomes an unnecessary drama. They invite you into arguments that do not concern you, opinions that do not improve you, and endless entertainment that leaves you feeling empty rather than fulfilled. At first, it feels harmless. You tell yourself you are only taking a short break, but short breaks slowly become daily habits, and daily habits quietly become your life. Ask yourself this simple question. What occupies your mind when you are alone? Is it your purpose, your growth, your family, your inner peace? Or is it the latest argument, the newest rumor, or the endless stream of information that changes nothing about the person you are becoming? Many people are mentally exhausted, not because they carry too many responsibilities, but because they carry too many distractions. A distracted mind cannot hear its own wisdom. The quiet voice that guides you toward discipline becomes difficult to recognize when your attention is constantly pulled in different directions. You begin every day with good intentions, but by evening you wonder where your time disappeared. Nothing dramatic happened. No great disaster interrupted you. Your life was simply consumed one small distraction at a time. This is why protecting your focus is a form of self-respect. Every moment you give your attention to something meaningless is a moment you can never recover. Time is the one possession that cannot be earned back. Money can return. Opportunities can appear again. Strength can be rebuilt. But the hours you waste today are gone forever. Those who understand this become very selective about where they place their attention. Not everyone deserves immediate access to your time. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every conversation deserves your participation. Wisdom is knowing the difference between what is urgent and what is important. Many things scream for your attention, but very few truly deserve it. Learn to become comfortable with silence. Learn to spend time without constant stimulation. It is in stillness that clarity begins to emerge. There is another truth that many people overlook. The enemy of purpose is rarely obvious destruction. More often, it is endless distraction. You do not have to abandon your dreams all at once. You only need to postpone them repeatedly. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. Before you realize it, your potential has been exchanged for temporary comfort and passing amusement. People who constantly distract you may not realize the damage they are causing. They simply live without direction themselves. But if you follow someone who has no destination, do not be surprised when you also become lost. You must choose carefully whose pace you follow and whose voice you allow to interrupt your peace. Guard your attention, because where your focus goes, your life will always follow. As you become more intentional about protecting your attention, you will begin to notice another type of influence that quietly weakens the human spirit. This influence does not always come from people who are negative, manipulative, or distracting. Sometimes it comes from those who have become deeply attached to the role of the victim. Life has wounded them, and instead of allowing those wounds to become wisdom, they allow them to become their identity. There is a great difference between someone who has suffered and someone who has chosen to live permanently inside their suffering. Every human being experiences pain. Every person faces disappointment, betrayal, loss, or failure. Pain itself is not what determines your future. What determines your future is the meaning you give to that pain. One person falls and learns to stand stronger than before. Another falls and spends the rest of life explaining why standing is no longer possible. The same storm visits both, yet one becomes resilient while the other becomes resigned. Be careful not to confuse compassion with agreement. You can feel empathy for someone's struggles without accepting a mindset that refuses to grow. There are people who always have an explanation for why nothing can change. If they fail, someone else is responsible. If relationships collapse, everyone around them is at fault. If opportunities disappear, the world is unfair. They speak as though life is happening only to them, never through their own choices. The danger of remaining close to this mindset is subtle. At first, you simply listen because you care. Then you begin understanding every excuse. Soon you start making similar excuses for yourself. You postpone your own responsibilities because you have learned to justify delay. You stop expecting more from yourself because constant explanations make discipline seem unnecessary. Without realizing it, another person's habits of thinking begin shaping your own. Responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that has happened. Many events in life are beyond your control. You cannot choose every circumstance that enters your path. You cannot prevent every hardship or every injustice, but you can always choose your response. That is where your freedom lives. The moment you surrender responsibility for your response, you surrender the power to transform your life. Think about the people who inspire you most. They are rarely those who had an easy journey. They are the ones who accepted responsibility even when circumstances were unfair. They refused to let difficulty become an excuse for abandoning their principles. They understood that while they could not rewrite yesterday, they could influence tomorrow through today's decisions. There is a quiet strength in people who ask themselves difficult questions. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" they ask, "What can this teach me?" Instead of saying, "Someone needs to rescue me," they ask, "What action can I take today?" Those questions change everything because they move the mind away from helplessness and toward growth. This does not mean you should become cold toward those who struggle. Offer kindness, offer encouragement, stand beside people who sincerely desire to rise again, but recognize the difference between supporting someone's healing and becoming trapped in a cycle where every solution is rejected because remaining a victim has become familiar. You cannot carry someone into a new life if they refuse to take even a single step themselves. The people you keep close should challenge you to become more accountable, not less. They should remind you that your choices matter, that your discipline matters, and that your future is not written by excuses but by consistent action. Even on the hardest days, they should point you back toward responsibility, because responsibility is not a burden, it is the doorway to freedom. Choose to stand beside those who seek solutions, for they will remind you that no matter what life has taken from you, the power to choose your next step remains yours. As you reflect on everything we have explored, one final kind of influence remains, and perhaps it is the most dangerous of all. It is the person who slowly pulls you away from truth, integrity, honesty, and inner peace. They may never ask you to commit some great act of destruction. They simply encourage small compromises. They tell you that your principles are too strict, that your values are old-fashioned, or that everyone bends the rules from time to time. Their invitation is rarely dramatic. It is subtle, and because it is subtle, many people never recognize the direction they are heading until they are far from the life they once desired. Character is not lost in a single decision. It is shaped by thousands of small decisions made when no one is watching. Every time you ignore your conscience for the sake of convenience, you silence that inner voice just a little more. At first, the discomfort is strong. Later, it becomes easier. Eventually, what once troubled you begins to feel normal. This is how people drift away from themselves, not through one great fall, but through many small steps taken without awareness. There are people who celebrate shortcuts while mocking discipline. They laugh at honesty because deception seems more profitable. They encourage revenge instead of forgiveness, arrogance instead of humility, and pride instead of self-reflection. If you remain in such an environment long enough, you may begin believing that integrity is weakness. Yet the opposite is true. It takes very little strength to follow the crowd. It takes tremendous strength to remain faithful to your principles when everyone around you is choosing the easier path. Never underestimate the influence of those closest to you. The people around you normalize certain behaviors.